Here at Behind the Mask, we acknowledge that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples are the original storytellers and custodians of the land on which we live and meet today. Behind the Mask is a podcast about sharing authentic stories. And in continuing that legacy of storytelling, we acknowledge that we're honouring and celebrating Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders' traditions, customs and stories. And we pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. In this episode of the Behind the Mask podcast, we discuss drug addiction, self-harm and suicide. If any of these issues are triggering for you, it's probably best to skip this episode.
Get to the AFL, my first pre-season was really good. First game against Geelong, second quarter, I ripped my hamstring to shreds.
How many weeks did it take to recover?
I missed the whole first year.
With that hamstring?
With that hamstring, missed that whole first year.
I was in a coma for 48 hours and they did a lumbar puncture. So they took fluid from my spine trying to find the infection and they never found anything. But I had an uncontrollable amount of seizures and a super high fever and I was delusional and I was like, but now in reflection, I'm like, my body was forcing me to stop.
I think there is a grieving for every player that finishes the game. Mine was probably over like a 12-month period. At my last year at the Saints, we knew going in that it was, hey, like if you don't, you know, you've sort of got to have a good year or else it's not going to happen.
All of a sudden I was in his bedroom headbutting the wall. And then the next thing that I remember was doing the same thing out the front against a brick wall. And then I was in the middle of the road, laying in traffic, trying to get traffic to run over me.
I'm Josh Pitterman. I'm a singer, actor and certified meditation teacher. I've played many roles in my life, both on and off stage, and I've worn many masks. But I've always had a curiosity for what's happening behind those masks, behind identity and the ego. I want to explore the real stories beyond the bright lights of people's journeys and get a VIP pass to the backstage tour of their lives. In this new podcast series, you'll get to know some of the most extraordinary and inspiring people behind the masks that they wear. It's an opportunity for them to share their authentic stories, their successes, sacrifices, hurdles, triumphs, fears, motivations, insecurities, and passions, as well as their self-discoveries, philosophical or spiritual awakenings, the growth mindset tools they've used, and the wisdoms and lessons they've learnt to navigate their way through life with purpose and meaning. It's time to be inspired by the depths of what it means to feel truly human. It's time to go behind the mask. I'm joined in the studio by two of my friends who I adore simply for the humans that they are. They've also created something that I think is pretty bloody phenomenal, but it's not just what they've created, but the reasons why and their journeys to getting there that I think are really interesting and unique. Welcome to the Behind the Mask podcast, Ella Pike and Nathan Freeman.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Joshy boy.
Ella, you are aptly referred to as the Breath Boss.
Yes, I am. That is my alter ego.
That's your alter ego. And Nathan, you're...
That's my mask.
That's your mask.
That's my mask.
Wow. We're going to get behind it very soon. And Nathan, you're a former AFL footballer turned AFL player manager. And together, you guys own the Breath Haus, which I think I'm right in saying is the only studio in Australia that is purely dedicated to breathwork.
Currently, yeah.
Yes, yeah, it is. Yeah.
How epic.
Yeah.
But if you take off the studio owner, boss, former AFL player, facilitator, coach mask and let go of all the identities and all the things that attach to that.
It's a hot mess over here.
What's left? When you separate all that stuff, who's in the heart and at the heart of Ella Pike and Nathan Freeman?
I'm a chaotic fairy. If I'm like that's how I would describe myself.
I'm the chaotic fairy.
Yeah,
I don't think we've ever had that before. I don't know whether we ever will have that again.
Or I'm like the hurricane that you can't look away from. It's like there's a hurricane going on, but also you don't want to like run away from it. You kind of just want to keep watching what's going on there.
That's
how people have described it.
Did you ever see the movie Twister?
No.
Nah.
It's probably before your time.
Have you ever felt like this? Not around the twist.
No, that's the twist.
Yeah.
But
that was around the twist.
There were people that were hunting cyclones. And so their they're the people who
They're
would
the
be
people who fill the
really
studios
keen
now.
on seeing Ella
nice.
Pike at full force.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's what it is.
that's a chaotic fairy. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Nathan?
I don't know. How would you describe me?
Well, it's up to you
I'm
to describe
pretty-
yourself.
I don't know. I think Ella would probably be able to describe me a bit better because one thing that I am not great at but still working on is finding getting the vulnerability and sort of finding out what makes you tick and who you are. I think Ella can sort of attest to it that I do come off as sort of surface level and guarded a lot of the time. And I think it's probably just from my background as being in football teams and AFL systems and just being a bloke. So yeah, it's always a work in progress. But
Do you introspect much? Do you talk?
Ella's laughing over there.
Well, I mean, let's get to your story because this might help us uncover some of this stuff today. Not that it's a therapy session; it's a bloody podcast. But
I'd love it to be a Nathan Freeman therapy session. So if you're here for that,
Ella gets so
let's
much
unpack
out of it.
this. Let's go.
it's unpack. So your journey to playing AFL football, you were a high draft pick, number 10 draft pick back in 2014. It was a dream for you, obviously, to play AFL, but the dream didn't happen the way you thought the dream would go. Just share your story for people who don't quite know it yet.
Yeah, as you touched on, I think sort of growing up, that's all I had my mindset on was to play AFL football, to make AFL. I grew up in a town called Dingley, which is sort of southeast of Melbourne. Went to Cheltenham Secondary College, got a football scholarship to go to Haileybury College, which I think that's when it sort of became all right, this is what I want to do. I'm really keen on, I'm just going to put all my eggs in one basket and try and make the AFL. And I guess I did, which I did. And I was, it was probably one of the proudest days of my life. I think just looking back now, obviously going on stage, getting drafted to pick 10 is quite high. And I think, as you said, you get drafted that high, you think you're going to play 300 games and have a great career because till then I'd never really had too much adversity in the way of sort of my footballing life. Obviously, personal life separate, but never really had any injuries, never really missed a lot of football. It was all sort of smooth sailing. And then get to the AFL, my first preseason was really good. First game against Geelong, second quarter, I ripped my hamstring to shreds.
So
and
this
then
is a preseason game?
Preseason game, yep.
Hadn't debuted.
Hadn't debuted yet, no. Yeah, one of those freak things that we still don't know really why it happened. I think it was just maybe an overtraining or it was just maybe my loads were too high that week or something, but it just sort of,
When you say ripped to shreds, what does that mean? Is it tore off the bone?
It was tendon to tendon, so it didn't come off the bone. It was sort of just tore straight in the middle of the tendon, up really high up near my glute.
They're the worst ones to do.
The worst, yeah. Especially when you're sort of a ballistic athlete like I was. Like speed was a sort of big part of my game.
How many weeks did it take to recover?
I missed the whole first year.
With that hamstring?
With that hamstring, missed that whole first year.
So it was a 20, 30-week hamstring?
Well, it was meant to be, it was sort of, it wasn't like your stock standard hamstring. I probably should have had an operation on it to fix it straight away, but we just sort of let it go and see how it healed. But yeah, it just sort of didn't ever really get better, didn't get right. And then we just sort of put me on ice towards the end of the year and try and hit preseason fresh.
Did you feel like when you got into that second preseason?
I never felt like it was fully right. I never felt like it was fully right, which was frustrating for me because in my body, I knew that I wasn't feeling right. Like I knew that there was that it hadn't properly healed or it wasn't ready to go.
Are you going to the club and going, hey, it just doesn't feel right? Or I know that there's something still going on. Can we look at it differently? Can we change the approach? Or were you going, I just need to get back out there. I don't want to say anything.
It was like a bit from column A, a bit from column B. And that was like the sort of wrestle where it was, I knew I wasn't right, but then there's there's the pressures on you as a high draft pick, top 10. You've got the fans and the supporters wanting to see you play, and there's the coaches, and then there's me who's here. That's like I know that I'm not right here. It wasn't like they were just like, nah, mate, like you're fine, get out there and play. Like we were doing a lot of things that we're trying to do to get right. So yeah, it was one of those things. It's just like when your body's your tool, like it's like going to a tradie and going to work without any tools, and it's just like you can't do what you do.
Yeah.
So that was sort of like the most frustrating thing. It's like I literally can't get out there and do my job because my body's not right.
At the end of the second year, they decided to trade you.
Yep.
And you agreed to go to St Kilda.
Yep.
And then what happened while you're at St Kilda?
Much of the same. Like I was niggling hamstrings, tweaking hamstrings. I think I played maybe like 4 or 5 VFL games, and the rest of it was like really intense gym work, really intense training blocks just to build my body back up.
Is this in year 1?
This is year 1 at St Kilda.
Okay.
Yeah, and because I signed a 3-year deal at St Kilda, and that first year going in, we knew that it was going to be like hey, we don't even expect you to play. Let's just build you back up. And then, because I was still young at the time, I think I was still about 20. Yeah. So it's like, if I get my body right, I could still have another 12-year career.
Where's your mind at? Like, are you at home, just sort of, trying to put it all to one side, watching things on the telly? Are you crying in a fetal position? Are you like, where are you at within yourself at those times?
I reckon I closed myself off quite a bit to sort of like friends and like my social life, because I was like all in playing football.
What made you feel like you need to close yourself off to them rather than open yourself up to them and go, hey, this is fucked. I'm doing it really tough. I need my mates and my support system more than ever.
Yeah, it's probably just not wanting to look like things are getting to me. I think that was the thing as well.
Your body's breaking down, and the thing that you feel like you can't control is your mind not breaking down.
Yeah. I reckon that's what a lot of how it's like I can't control what's happening in my body. It's breaking. It's like letting me down. So what can I control is like mindset, what I'm doing outside of footy. And I think the other thing was I didn't want to finish up my career, whether it was 1 year, 2 years. I didn't want to finish up and be like, fuck, I wish I did like this. I wish I'd explored this avenue. I was like
no stone left
exactly.
unturned.
When I finished at St Kilda and got delisted, I was like, I feel like I've like exhausted every possible thing I could have done, and I can like lay my head on the pillow at night and be like, I fucking had a crack. It just didn't work. I wasn't owed anything. I got drafted high, but I'm not owed any more than the player that went pick 60. So I think that's the thing as well. Like I never got caught up in, fuck, I'm a top 10. Like I'm so good. Why is this happening to me?
And so you get to the end of 3 years at St Kilda. There's a subsequent other injuries there. I think you did a shoulder and ankle. There's all sorts of. Did the hamstring ever get right?
It never got right.
Is it right now?
I wouldn't say it's right now. No. But I learned how to adapt my game to a way where I'm sort of like putting myself at risk. Yep. So I went from a really ballistic, explosive type player to more of like an accumulator, inside outside player sort of thing. So
not running at 120%.
Yeah, not all the time. No. So I think I watched a lot of, like growing up, I used to watch a lot of like Chris Judd, Luke Shuey, like these types breaking out of stoppages. But then I went and watched a lot of like Sam Mitchell, Tom Mitchell, these like Dane Swan, like big accumulator type players who have massive tanks. So that was the other thing as well.
So you shifted from being a speed athlete to more of an endurance athlete.
Yeah. Had to, because every time I tried to come back and play like I was just putting myself at risk, and I was just pinging hamstrings.
When you go, okay, it's over, and you go, I'm retiring from football 5 years in, having played 2 or 3 games, but having want to have had a prolific career. I know you said you're not owed anything, but is there that the grieving?
I think there is a grieving for every player that finishes the game. I think mine was probably over like a 12-month period. At my last year at the Saints, we knew going in that it was, hey, like if you don't, you've sort of got to have a good year or else it's not going to happen. And my manager, who was Paul Connors at the time, like was amazing. Like same thing. I'm just like, mate, tell me how it is. Tell it to me straight. Like if I'm not going to get a contract, if I'm not going to, if they're sort of saying no, if they're saying yes, like just let me know. And then I'd had hamstring surgery at the start of my last year. Again, same hamstring. Played, I think, round 7 in the VFL. Played 2 games in the VFL. Tore my AC joint, tore my shoulder. Grade 4 AC joint, which was like hanging off. And then I went and saw the surgeon, and the surgeon was like, hey, like you need surgery, you need to put a plate in it because it's so loose, it's broken. But if you do that, like you're out for the year. And that was my last year at St Kilda, and I was like, fuck, I can't do that. So I had 2 weeks off and just played and trained with like injections in my shoulder, strapped it up to the fucking shitter.
This is a part of the system, and players who want to get contracts, they may have these sort of niggles. And they're going, I'm choosing not to have surgery. and I'm just going to juice myself up on injections?
I think I was I was a really unique case though, because it was like the club knew, I knew, and it was just like, hey, let's just have a crack here. So I was just playing with numbing injections, strapping it up, and yeah, it'd probably last till half time, and then it'll get sore as hell, and I'd take the strapping off and re-strap it.
But this is the life of an elite athlete.
Absolutely.
And people need to know that these are the sacrifices that people in not just Yorko, but all elite athletes go to in order to be able to do the thing that they love the most.
100%. And I think especially, well, I can only speak from AFL experience, but you'd be hard-pressed to get to the first bye or round 8, and there's 90% of the AFL playing with a niggle. Like so it happens a lot. You don't actually understand what goes into the week to week of actually getting out there and playing elite level AFL football. And going back to my last year at the Saints, so I came back and played with a bung shoulder. I went out and played. I went from inside mid to playing the wing, so I wouldn't get as in trouble, get as hit. And yeah, managed to play sort of well enough and debuted against the Doggies, I think in round 20.
Yep.
Played against them, played against Essendon the next week.
Did you kick a goal?
I kicked a goal against Essendon. Yeah, kicked one goal 2 or 1 goal 1 or something.
Good on you.
So yeah, that was good fun. But yeah, like going back, I grew up in a town called Dingley, and we're really tight. Like there's a big group of us boys that down there, and they're still, you know, some of my best mates to this day. They I think I debuted on a Saturday night, and they played at the Peanut Farm against St Kilda City, and then they all came in to Marble Stadium, like right up on the race where we walk out. It's probably like 50, 60 of them, like all had a gut full of piss, like they were all like yahooing. I was walking up and I just heard all the boys just like get around it. So it was that to be honest, like debuting wasn't like, yeah, it was as much about me, but like I was like all these people had like come on this journey with me as well, like friends, family, schoolmates, like people were just sort of like rooting for me to play.
You felt the suffering of 4.5 years of your journey.
So it was like, what was the best, most exciting thing for me was like when I got told I was playing, like I text the boys and like everyone's pumped. I'm ringing mum, I'm ringing best journey. Mates. Like the Dingley boys are like, fuck yeah, we're playing at St Kilda City this week. Like we'll all come in after. Like it was massive. So
I love that you got that in your career.
That was like, that's probably the most like satisfying or like, satisfying part, like thing of my whole life, I'd say, because like I could have retired after that game and I would have been like, I'm so happy. Like so I think that was the thing as well. And even the boys I was playing with, like the VFL boys, the AFL boys, the coaches, like the physio staff that I'd spent attached to the hip for 3 years, we were just so pumped. They're the stories around that, like that, not just me, there's every single player that goes out on the weekend, there's a story behind literally every single one of them.
Every single athlete. Like I'm thinking of
athlete.
Soccer and basketball and all the genders and everyone. That like it means so much more than just playing.
Yes.
There's so many stories between stories, inside stories.
It's wild. And 99% of them you don't even hear. Like you would never know about, but it means so much to them and the people associated with them. Like every little achievement or goal or whatever. They're the things that you don't see behind.
Well, I think
the footballer.
I think one thing that we can certainly say about you, you might not want to put your hand up and say, this is who I am, but I would say you're very resilient.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I think you're pretty, to endure that so much suffering, so much pain, so much adversity, and after 4.5 years, get out there and change the whole way you play, change who you are in a football field, just to be able to have that moment. I think that says so much about you, not being the depressive person in the change rooms and not bringing the mood down, trying to look for solutions. I think that's one of an incredible character trait within you, mate. So,
thanks, mate. Yeah.
Flipping over to you, Ella.
I felt like I've spoken a heap here. Sorry, Ella.
Do we want to keep talking about it? I really enjoyed listening to that. I nearly cried for a second.
My favourite thing's not talking about myself.
Oh my God, I'm not even talking and I'm going to cry about it.
You're on a podcast, so you're going to have to talk. Ella, you didn't play AFLW, and you didn't do hamstrings, not that I'm aware of, but your journey to get to where you are now has also had its crisis and its suffering.
Multiple.
Yeah, share your story because I know, but because I'm your mate, but people don't know how far you've come to be an elite breathwork practitioner, to own a studio, to have such an impact on community now, but you weren't there, let's say,
Oh my God,
even
I was
less
not
than a
there
decade
few
ago.
years ago.
Yeah. 5 years ago. Yeah. So
The end of 2019 was where I started to like turn into this person, I guess. It was like the end of the cocoon phase.
yeah, but talk to me before it.
Oh, okay. It was just chaos. It was just like uncontrolled chaos before that. It was, okay, what do you want to know? Like pivotal moments?
No, I want to know at all. Share, like, I know you've gone through serious anxiety and depression. You've gone through drug addictions. You've gone through it all. So just share it. Like, you're taking off your masks.
14, I reckon I first started to like be really naughty and leave home and really rebel. Go back further, actually. Crazy childhood, like chaotic childhood. Love it now in reflection, but like a lot of daddy issues. A lot of like dad's very narcissistic, very love him to bits for what he is, and have a great relationship with him now. But before I learnt about who he was and who I was through growing up with him, it was very
Is this in Byron?
painful. Yeah, I grew up in Byron.
Yeah.
Mum and dad broke up when I was like 5, and it was like, actually, I had a full moment the other day because it was the first time in nearly 30 years that I had ever heard my mum say anything kind about my dad. We were like driving maybe 6 months ago, and I was like, why am I feeling so much? And we're like driving in the car going for a swim, and she just was randomly saying these kind things, and I was like, what's going on in my body? I've never felt this. And I had this full moment. Anyway, so like very chaotic upbringing, very sad mum in reflection, really happy mum now, really sad mum growing up, really narcissistic dad, which was an interesting combination for me. And then I, started to be real naughty at 14, moved out of home at 15
What
or
did
16.
naughty look like?
I stopped going to school. I started smoking a lot of weed. I spent a lot of time with my ex-boyfriend, Nathan. Funny that, and different Nathan, but spent a lot of time with my ex-boyfriend, Nathan. Ended up leaving school when I was 16, moving into his family home. Left Australia when I was 18, lived overseas from 18 to 21 nearly. 21.
Were you still feeling rebellious?
I was running from everything.
Yeah.
I was running from everything. I was very anxious. I was very insecure. I was very
And we say running
sad.
from everything, running from family or running from
myself.
Running from yourself.
Yeah, running from myself, I would say. Family as well. I didn't speak to my family for a lot of years in the middle there. Lived overseas, traveled Europe for a year, lived in Dubai, lived in London, was in London, and I was about to move out by myself. I was living with my older sister, and I ended up, at this point, I'm probably like 98 kilos, so I'm very sad, very swollen, and I ended up in a coma. I got encephalitis, and so I ended up in a coma, and my whole family thought I was going to die.
Is that like meningitis?
It's the same as meningitis, but it's bacterial, not
viral.
It's not viral.
Okay.
But funny story, now in like reflection, so I was in a coma for 48 hours, and they did a lumbar puncture. So they took fluid from my spine trying to find the infection, and they never found anything. But I had an uncontrollable amount of seizures and a super high fever, and I was delusional, and I was like, but now in reflection, I'm like, my body was forcing me to stop, but they put me into a coma because they thought I had encephalitis. So I spent 6 weeks in hospital, and when I left, that was like the diagnosis, but there was no proof of that. So now in like my journey, it was assumption based. So now in my journey, I was like, your body was begging you to stop because you were about to go into a whole nother level of fucked if you'd stayed on the path of moving out as a 21-year-old in London into where I was going to live. And then I came back to Australia, and then I lived at home for like 6 months. Back in Byron.
Yeah.
And that was horrific. Loved it. But
and did you clock at that moment, going back, that you're like, hey, something needs to shift here. I need to stop.
No.
You kept on that train.
I kept on going. I came back to Byron and continued to I became like the crazy waxer. I became a beauty therapist, and I was just like I did 12-hour days of just like body waxing and spray tanning girls.
And what made you want to do? Were you off drugs? Were you still on drugs?
I was smoking a lot of weed every day. I was sending it really hard every weekend, but I was still working like 42 hours a week or something like that.
And was that you going, okay, this is how I get my life in check. I'm going to work more. I'm going to have a solid job. I'm going to earn money. and that's going to sort me out?
So it wasn't actually until I moved to Melbourne and I met my last ex. I actually kind of just was living thinking that at any point in one of my depressive episodes I wasn't going to get through it. So I was just kind of like, I always thought I was just going to end my life, to be completely transparent. Like up until I was 23, so for 2 years after moving home, I just would have like really depressive episodes every couple of weeks, and I would always think like, oh, that's it. I don't have to worry too much about the future because one of these will get me one day.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Hectic. I just was like always numb.
How did those like depressive, if we can go into it if you don't mind, how did they sort of manifest? What sort of behaviours would come up for you? And then were they really dark solo times? Did you?
So I've always been a big feeler, and I still do. I'm a big feeler. Like I will call Nathan.
That's your superpower.
So that's my superpower now. Yeah. But I have always been a big feeler, and before I understood it, the lows were very, very low. Like they still do get pretty low sometimes, but like they used to get unbelievably low, mostly because I would have been okay for 2 days of the week, and then I would have been partying for 4 days of the week, and then I would be like wondering why I was feeling so shit the 2 days after.
Right.
You know, so it was kind of like this continuous cycle of.
But were they met with solo time, and were they met with just like, I'm just on the couch feeling depressed, feel like, as you said, suicidal, or did you have to release that energy somehow? Did you get out of the house? Did you do things? Did you do? Like,
trigger warning, I would self-harm a lot. I used to like just slice my leg every time I felt like that, or slice my arm just so I could control the feeling that I felt.
And release it out of your body.
So it was never like deep enough in reflection to like actually take myself. But like my dad had this like special laser machine and he did it twice. He fixed my leg with a laser because he's like, I'm not going to do it again. And then I did it again with all the cuts. And then he fixed it one more time and he's like, if you do it again, I'm not fixing it. And then I did my arm the next time and I still have the scars on my arm because he wouldn't help me fix it that time. And then that was the last time I self-harmed. Yeah, the last time. It would have been the last times I self-harmed. But that used to be my like out.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's all part of the story.
I know it's part of the story and you can go really through it, but I'm hearing that part and that breaks my heart.
Yeah, but then it kept getting worse. It got worse. But then it got better. So then I moved to Melbourne after living at home for like a year and a half, I would say. And I'd been living in London. I'd lived in Dubai. I traveled for a year. Like I didn't want to be in Byron. I really, really didn't love Byron. So I moved to Melbourne and I actually started working at a lash salon. And I ended up getting into like a bit of a interesting relationship with one of my bosses at the time. I started living with her and it was kind of like I was living with her, I was working for her, I was doing these massive shifts, I was making the most, like it was just this really toxic now in reflection. I'm like, wow, she was kind of just like keeping me right there, keeping me really sad because I would send it with her every weekend, but lending me money, like lending me stupid amounts of money. So I kept getting in debt to her and then she's also my boss. And it was just like this really weird, it was like I was her little like toy kind of thing. And that's when I started eating Xannies. I started eating lots of Xanax then.
Xanax,
yeah, because every weekend we'd go out and then I would just be on it and then I would come down with that and spend the whole day Monday in bed.
Oh.
And then a year after that, I ended up.
This is Xanax for a whole year.
This is Xanax for at least 8 months. And like I didn't realize how bad they were. I thought they were just like a Valium. So I'm like eating them. Someone sold me a couple of hundred of them. I remember I had a cling wrap bag of them and I would eat one in the morning and I would have it with like a 4-pack of sugar-free Vs and then I would go to work and then I would have like
one. As in the
energy drink. Yeah. So I would have a Xanny and then a 4-pack of it, like at least two of
That was breakfast.
That was breakfast. After like an F45 class and then I would have
Hold up, so you were doing, I'm going to exercise.
I was doing the most extreme of everything. I was eating the most. I would have like a foot-long breakfast Subway. I would have Xannies, I would have I would have to the point where my employers, for the girls I worked for, banned me from drinking caffeine, okay, because I was too chaotic even with the Xanax in my system to the point where I would put it into a mug and pretend it was tea. Like I would pour my V into a mug and pretend that it was tea. So they didn't, because I was just like, proper addiction.
And this idea that you said of like I was running away, this is another sort of version of it for you.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, I'm going to do F45, that's going to make me feel good. And then we're going to do this.
I've just always been the most extreme. Like it always has to be the most, you still now a little bit, but you more then. It was like the most extreme exercise, but then also the most extreme eating, the most extreme partying, but then the most extreme like numbing of myself the next day, you know? So it was like, no, just chill.
Or balance.
None whatsoever. And then I ended up having the final real big moment, which was a full psychotic episode. No, not quite psychotic. Pretty bad.
Like a breakdown.
Full breakdown. So I got home from work on a Saturday afternoon. I was living on Swan Street at the time, and I remember like my bedroom was like my sanctuary. And I got home and I was planning on having a night in, and my ex was going to come over, and he'd had all these dramas with his friends that were caused by our relationship, and just like, I don't even remember now, but he was like, I'm having such a good night with my mates for the first time in so long. Like, can you come over here and then we'll go back to yours? And I was like, I just had 2 Xanax. I probably shouldn't come over, but I did. And then when I got there, I felt uncomfortable, and someone opened a bottle of red wine. And I was like, screw it, I'll have a glass of red wine. So then I'd already had 2 Xannies, and then I had a glass of red wine, and then another one. And then I just got this like, I used to be very insecure, like uncomfortably insecure. And I don't even remember what happened, but I just remember all of a sudden switching. I don't even remember. All of a sudden I was in his bedroom headbutting the wall. Like proper, we need to have a trigger warning on this episode. I was proper headbutting the wall to the point where one of my best friends came in, and my ex was on top of me holding me down on the bed, and she thought she was walking in on something that she shouldn't be walking in on. But like I was like at the start of the worst thing that had happened to me in a while. So I remember seeing her face as she walked in, and I was like, don't even remember what I looked like or was saying, but I remember seeing her. And then the next thing that I remember was doing the same thing out the front against a brick wall. And then I was in the middle of the road laying in traffic, trying to get traffic to run over me on a street where there's cars go 40 kilometers an hour. So cars were just stopping. And my friend ended up pulling me out of the street. And then I got into an Uber with her, and we went to the hospital because by this point I had like a massive egg on my head. And when we got to the hospital, we went to the Alfred, and the person next to me was being discharged against the nurse's will. So like he'd been taken in there by his mates, and he was like signing a form, and I was like, I don't want to be here either. And she was like, well, we think you need to come in. And I remember I got my hands on signing one of those, and then my friend's like, I'm not coming with you if you're going to leave here. So I got back in an Uber, and I went home and ate more Xanax. And then I went back to my ex's house, and again laid in traffic trying to get his attention. And then I ended up being taken back to the hospital, and then I got fully strapped down and admitted overnight to calm myself down. And then the next day I went home to Byron, and I came off Xannies. And I didn't even fully come off them. I remember showing my old housemate at the time the stash that I had, and she made me flush them down the toilet. But of course, when you're addicted to something, you have a spare. And so I like told everyone I'd flushed them all, and then still took like 10 back home to Byron. And then I had to come off those slowly, and Mum watched everything that I did. And then I did 5 days of therapy for like 5 weeks, I would say.
As in seeing a
psych.
seeing
a psych. And I found the most incredible
psychologist or psychiatrist?
Psychologist. And this was the first, I've been seeing a psychologist since year 4. And this psychologist, Jane Enter, oh my gosh, she just changed my whole life. I don't know if it was the consistency, because it was finally more than just like the 6 sessions that you get at the GP, or if it was just her and I, but her daughter actually went to high school with me, and she lost her daughter in 2013, a year after I would have finished. And so I had like this resistance about going to her and telling her how suicidal I'd been and all that. But she obviously just made me feel safe, and we just unpacked everything, and she helped me understand why I was the way that I was. And she helped me like intellectualize it. And she like, I don't know if you've seen a psychologist, but you always start with like.
Seen several.
Yeah. So you
and
always.
Still see one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you always start with your story, and you always start with like, and so I was like, okay,
and you
here we go.
often start with the version of your story that you want to paint out to them, because you don't necessarily want to be seen as the version of yourself that you know you are at that time. And it can take a few sessions before you really reveal what's going on and what's going on, the layers and this taking off of the masks and taking, knocking down the walls to go, this is really where I'm at.
Yeah. So I remember the first day that I sat in her office, and I was sitting at the furthest away that I could from her, holding a pillow. At this point, I hadn't slept in like maybe 3 days, and I was just like so not there. And this was the point where I was still being watched 24/7. Like mum was sleeping in my bed, or like my best friend was with me. Like someone was with me all the time. And I remember starting to tell the story, and I just thought to myself, fuck this. Like, fuck going and just telling someone my whole life story again for them to go, okay, cool, then what happened? Then what happened? And I remember I started telling her a story about my dad, and she stopped me in the middle of the story. And instead of just being like, and what happened next? She was like, okay, cool. So that story that you're telling me now and that thing that happened to you on the weekend, can you see the correlation? And I was like, oh, what? And then she just like every time, it wasn't just her listening. It was like she would stop me in the middle of my story and say, so now your adult life, this is how it's showing up. This is the gravitational pull. This is that. And I was like, oh.
So you could really analyze it, intellectualize it, and have a much greater understanding of why the series of events that you were living through were occurring based on the traumas of your younger self.
Yeah. A lot of people that I speak to and I see now in my work now, it's like a lot of people just go for the 6 sessions and then they just like give up at the cycle. Like you have to keep going until you find someone that you connect with.
Yeah, that can take a long time.
You have to
I'm so glad that you found someone so quickly. A little gift.
This was like after constant, like I reckon I'd been for mental health care plans once a year from literally
But after
as soon as
that
I
full
could.
breakdown, the person you saw was your person.
Yeah, 100% she was my person.
Yeah, sometimes the universe really works.
Well, now that I believe in the universe, I think that every single thing that's happened to me my whole entire life, from like all of the things, is exactly like, of course it happened like that.
I don't want to discount your suffering and the level you went to, and say that you deserved it, because no one deserves that. But when we do understand the universe isn't, or the world isn't happening to us, it's happening for us, that the obstacle is the way, then we lean into these things. We stop running away. And we run towards. We lean into it and go, well, what's really happening there, and how can I learn from it? What a story.
Yeah. So then I found breathwork like a year after that. So I went back into I came back down to Melbourne and I was like, oh, I'm all better now. And then I was clean off Xannies and I was all that. And then I ended up leaving the job that I realized was so toxic for me. And then I started my own lash thing. And then that was we went up from there.
Okay. I wanted to share a quote with you. The quote is, be ground, be crumbled, so wildflowers will come up where you are. You've been stony for too many years. Try something different. Surrender. It's this idea of that we actually are meant to break down, and that fighting and running away from it isn't necessarily the way. It's actually leaning into it and surrender. Yeah. Be crumbled.
Ella's got it tattooed on her.
I do. I also have surrender tattooed on me.
There we go.
Because that's the biggest thing. It's you just have to trust and you just have to go with it and you just have to take it all as it comes.
Which is a lot of, I guess, of what breathwork is about. So let's get to that, because that's going to shape a lot of the rest of this potty. When did you first, both of you, do a, invert commas, breathwork session?
Mine was a year after I had that last moment where I came back to Melbourne and we went into lockdown. It was February 2020. And my ex and I were breaking up, and I was very much ready to – I actually bought 2 Xanax. About 8 months after I'd come clean off them. And my best friend's try breathwork. And I was like, shut the fuck up, Maddie. I'm not going to try breathwork. That's not me. And another person was try breathwork. And I was like, why are you guys suggesting breathwork to me? I was like, no, this isn't going to work for me.
Have you ever heard of it before?
I'd grown up in Byron around a lot of people who did a lot of breathwork before it was a thing. But no, I'd done box breathing. I'd done 4-7-8 and it never did anything for me because I only ever did one round of it. And then so all these people said.
And when you say box breathing, you're talking about 4 in, 4 hold, 4 out, 4 hold.
Yeah.
And you just did it for what? You just did that once?
I probably did it 3 times and went, no, didn't work.
Sure. Okay.
And then 3 people sent me the same link to a Zoom, and I was like, fine, I will do this Zoom. I remember it cost me I think it cost me $70, and I was thinking to myself, what a waste of money. And I laid down on the Zoom, and Curtis Lee, his name was, started just explaining all this stuff, and I was laying there laughing. He couldn't hear me, he couldn't see me, our Zooms were off, but I was laughing at this man because I thought, you sound like you're fucking crazy. I was like, we're doing some breathing, what are you talking about? And then he told us about how we have to set our intention and how our mind was going to wander, and the whole part of it was coming back to yourself and letting your mind wander, but staying with what you were doing and waiting until your breath like took over. And then all of a sudden I got up and then I laid back down. I was like, he said you were going to do that. Get back down. And at this point, I don't think I'd ever done anything hard. Like I'd never done anything hard.
And that's what you were running away from the whole time.
Yeah.
The hard stuff.
Yeah. So I never had done anything hard. I never felt anything sober unless it was like sadness. It was never like, I'd never cultivated any high feelings in my body. It was always external. And the contradiction was you were running towards trying to feel. Yeah, I was dying. No, I was dying to numb. I was dying to feel like that euphoric bliss all the time. That was what I wanted. That's why I was so obsessed with Xanax. Because I was like, oh, there we go.
But
it's
also
nothingness.
F45, not to discount F45 or any
It's
workout,
intense,
but it's endorphins. It's like really feeling and like a foot-long Subway. I'm really feeling all of that. You know, like it's really...
A 4-pack of sugar-free V.
Yeah. It's all sugar-free. Yeah.
You're really doing a lot there. Yeah. And then I got up and then I got back down and then I kept going with it. And then all of a sudden it just clicked. And all of a sudden I was like getting tetany. And then all of a sudden I was crying.
You're
and
getting
then
what?
Tetany, where your hands go, you know, in your hands. Yeah. So I was getting that. And then I was laughing and then I was crying. And then he said to do this scream. And I was like, there's no way I'm screaming into a pillow because I'd never spoken anything truth to myself. Like I had a big voice block. And he said to scream into a pillow. And at the start when I heard that, I was like, there's no way I'm screaming into a pillow. And then everything that he had said was going to happen was happening. And I was like laughing and I was crying and I was sweating and I was feeling insanely. And like it was the best thing that had ever happened to me. So I remember grabbing the pillow and I remember the sun was shining into my bedroom and I remember laying on my bed and putting myself on top of the pillow and screaming into this pillow because that was the end of the breathwork session.
How long did you scream for?
A whole song.
Really?
I forced it. I forced it at the start, and then all of a sudden, I was just. It was big. That was That was the first time that I'd like granted myself permission to make a noise. That was like taking up space, I would say.
Yeah, and letting a lot of stuff out.
And I just felt so free afterwards. And it was laying on my bed after that, and he said, "Welcome home to yourself." And I had mocked that. I had mocked that my whole entire life. When people were like, "I feel so home in my body," I was always like, it's your body. Of course you feel home in it. And it was so foreign to me because I felt so unsafe in my body and I never wanted to be there. So then all of a sudden I was like, oh, this is it. I was like, this is the feeling. And then that was enough. That afternoon I walked down to the BWS at the end of the street and I got 4 bags of ice and I had my first ever ice bath in my little shower bath at my apartment.
When was that?
At the start of 2020.
No, in relation to your breathwork session?
An hour after.
Like literally an hour afterwards.
Because he said like go have a cold shower or something, and I was thinking to myself, I'm gonna literally have an ice bath because of course I need to do the most extreme of it. It couldn't just be a cold shower; it had to be an ice bath, and I did, and then that was that. And then people were like, "Shut up about breath work." I became obsessed with it. I was doing like hours of the Wim Hof method a day, like hours of it.
Yeah.
I couldn't get enough of it.
Wow. So there's still a sense of extreme.
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
Have you read much Carl Jung, either of you?
No, but I have 3 of his textbooks on my bookshelf, but I haven't actually read them.
So he talks a lot about the different archetypes within people. There's 4 major archetypes, and they are the warrior, the magician, the lover, and the king or the queen. But all of them have an opposing side, a shadow side. We all have these. So for the warrior, the opposing side is a sadist. For the magician, the opposing side is a manipulator. For the king, the opposing side is a tyrant. And for the lover, the opposing side is an addict. And it's a really interesting thing to look at that you go, hey, I might be the biggest lover in the world, but if I shift into my shadow, there's the addict.
Yeah.
And so his work is really interesting to look at, and I'll send you
That's so interesting.
Send you
what would you say I am? You're definitely.
I'm definitely a lover.
All of them. We are
but
all,
sure, you lean into one.
You certainly lean into more things than others, or there might be 1 or 2. But
I'm going to Google this after.
Yeah, it's super interesting. So that's your first breathwork session. Nathan, your first experience?
My first experience. So it's a type of breathwork. So I went obviously through the AFL system. We used to do a little bit of performance stuff. So I spent a bit of time at the Gold Coast Suns. It'd probably be, I think, end of 2021 with a guy called Nam Baldwin. So he was sort of like a life coach, facilitator, up at the Gold Coast. So we used to do all the like pool work, even like, doing a couple of hypoxic breaths, going underwater and wrestling underwater just to train your lungs. So that type of breath work, which
Very
is
functional.
very functional breath
So what
work.
does that do? Increase CO2 and...
Yeah. So increase like CO2 tolerance. So like your body's ability to adapt to like a low CO2, high CO2, low oxygen.
So you take less breaths per minute.
Yeah. So then that's sort of where
So
I
when you put that out into a sporting scenario, you're just going to be fitter?
Yeah, you are fitter, but when you're, at the end of the quarter or you're stuffed or you've just done a big effort, you're huffing and puffing because you want to get more oxygen because your CO2 is so high in your body, but it's teaching your body not to freak out when your CO2 is high in your body.
Yeah.
So that's sort of, and going on to breathwork, where I'm sort of interested in it is that sort of like functional performance side of it, like the divers and the free divers and surfers and big wave surfers and those types of guys where they just have so much control over their body and mental state and mind state and just sort of that like staying calm when your body's smashing, like your check engine lights on your mind, everyone's buzzing away.
Didn't mention classical or classically trained singers there.
No, not yet. No, you guys are a different kettle of fish. You should tell us how to do that sort of stuff.
Well, it's a different type of breath management.
It's a different type of breath. But yeah, so I'd sort of got introduced into a type of breath work there. And then I met Ella. So Ella was working reception at a gym I started to go to with one of my best mates, Charlie.
One of our best mates.
Best mates, Charlie. So Ella was running classes by herself, sort of like 2 times a week, 2 times a week, just hiring out a studio in Middle Park, Elwood.
That's where you came?
Yeah, that's where I first met.
That's your first ever session.
Yeah.
So Josh, OG. So that you're OG,
Yeah.
like Middle Park, hiring out the studio.
And a good friend of ours and the podcast's, Cody Waitman,
Yes.
texts me, goes, "Hey mate, I'm going to this breathwork session." That's not how Cody speaks. Hey mate, I'm going to this. Hey brother, I'm going to this breathwork session. I think you'd really dig it. Come along. He definitely didn't use dig. He would have said it's elite.
Yeah.
He definitely would have used the word elite.
Yeah.
And I went, it was elite. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was Sam Canavan came as well.
Sam came to that
I
one.
took Canners to the second one I went to.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam Canavan,
There was
who's
other
a general
people in
manager
there
of ClassPass in
he's
Asia Pacific.
Good
Yeah.
friend of it. Yeah, he's dominating.
Also just became a daddy.
Also, just going to see.
Saturday.
Yeah. See the bub soon.
Rooster.
Yeah.
Vifa. No, so then I met Ella. We started on the gym. We just all became friends. So Charlie already knew Ella first. We all just started hanging out, and Ella was begging me to come to a breathwork class, and I was like, same thing beforehand. I'm like, nah, this is not for me. Like, what? Nah, it's too woo-woo. It's too wiggy. I'm not doing it.
This was when I used to do eye gazing at the start of every session. So then Nathan comes to the class. And remember, did you do the eye gazing?
I've done the eye gazing, and I've done a lot of eye gazing.
In my classes?
Yes, I've done it. Yeah, one of your classes. Yeah. Do you guys still do that? Do you still have a class of that at the
No.
Breath?
No,
you don't.
That's more for like the workshops and
That's
the
for the
higher
deep dives.
deep dive
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, we took it out of just the everyday class.
Well,
People are a bit closed off to it.
I'm a big fan of the eye gazing. I talk a lot about lots of people on this podcast. I quote that some people have no idea about, but Ram Dass is a spiritual practitioner.
Ram Dass.
Love
He's one
Ram
of our
Dass. We all
favourites.
love Ram Dass. And Ram Dass says, now you look into the eyes of another being and you see another being looking back at you. And if you do it for long enough, like in an eye gazing session of 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, you suddenly met with that moment where you go, far out.
Tamira.
I'm in here. You're in that one. Well, what's it like in that one? And in that moment, what you realize is that it's just another awareness, just another soul, but packaged differently. And so as a society, I sort of feel we obsess so much on the packages and we oppress and we discriminate and we judge and we abuse and we kill based on what a package looks like or what's in that package, rather than going, if we could simply, I know it's sort of utopian, but if we could do more of that work and actually see the soul of another, yeah, it's a mirror. It's going, their fears, their anxieties, their stuff, their compassion, their love, everything inside of that soul is what's inside of me. And you could never treat another like that.
Well, I made him stare into my eyes for like, I don't even know how long. I think it was like a whole song. It was Ocean Eyes. It was like a 2-minute and 50 second song.
She set this up though. So me and Charlie were going back. Then one day, me and Charlie were just like, fuck it. Let's go to the session.
Charlie was already coming.
No, but I said to Charlie, I'm like, let's just go. Like it was a Sunday night or something. Anyway, we rock in. I don't know what to expect. No idea. I'm just like, all right, I'm going to do it, see what it's about. I was next to Ella because I was in this class and it wasn't typically like, not my people, but it's like people, like I'm footy boy. Like I was still a player manager at this time. I'm still around this. And
when you had your first game, you got everyone cans of tin. You got tinnies.
Yeah, that's right.
Full bloke
so
stuff.
that's the thing. Like I'm walking in here and I'm like, this is so foreign to me. Anyway, he sat next to Ella because I knew Ella and Charlie. And then next minute we're like gazing into each other's eyes for a whole song, like 3.5 minutes. And for a dude like me, like that's so uncomfortable. Anyway, got through it. It was great. And then we started into the breath work and like it was everyone has the same experience because it's like you don't get it until you do it. You don't get it. 100%. And then afterwards you're like, I get it. Like that is wild. So I had like, it's almost like psychedelic. Like I blissed out. I was nowhere. It was the quickest hour of my life because I was just outside of my head. Mind is so quiet. You just sort of, like you can't really explain it. And for someone like me, I'm go, go, go. Like there's not a minute of the day where it's like I'm not on. And it was probably the first time where I'd actually sat there and just sort of stopped for an hour.
Yep.
So that was like the main thing for me.
What you got into was like that blissed out, that's your subconscious.
That's your subconscious. Yeah, because like scientifically, you're going through your brainwave levels. You're going from alpha to beta to theta.
That's what's
shuffling
happening.
through all of them.
Yep.
So it's like you're sort of teetering on the edge of sleep and consciousness.
Yeah, it's dreaming wide awake. So I talk about it with meditation all the time.
You're in this state and you can't explain it, and it's
because it's not logical, it's abstract.
Yeah,
and in that abstract state, you're going to see colours and shapes and geometry and all sorts of stuff.
And how many times do you get to sit there and check in with yourself, like? And sort of like, I can't even remember, like outside of breathwork and a session or whatever, it's like I don't have time to like check in myself. And I think that's what, like I get a lot of my mates who are sort
I'm going to challenge you on that. You have time.
I do have time, but there's always something to be done. Like I think it's funny, like and I'm getting better at it, but probably not really. The first thing to go for me is like that sort of, not self-care, but like that checking in and like having time with yourself and like actually going like stopping and slowing down and being like, all right.
Do you drink coffee?
No, not a little bit of coffee, yeah.
No,
do you drink water?
Drink coffee. He drinks energy drinks.
I drink a lot of Red Bull because I probably got that habit from playing footy.
But you drink water, you have a drink, you have a meal.
Yes.
Yeah, you have things in your day that are absolutely set. And here's something that I always give to people when they go, I don't have time to check in on myself. Before you have that drink, before you have that sip, before you put your fork on that food, sit with it, appreciate it, there's sort of level of gratitude, but also just go, how do I feel right now?
I'm here.
I'm here. How do I feel? Do I feel
Nathan's always
anxious?
great.
I did read.
Nathan's nothing ever but great.
Something popped up on my socials and it was like the exact same thing where it's like meditation doesn't have to be sitting in a breathwork class or sitting in a studio. It's like you can meditate folding the washing. You can meditate mowing the lawn. Like if you're just there and you're present, you're checking, you're being mindful, you're taking deep breaths. It's like that's like another form of it. So yeah, I think as well, like but I'm getting better at it. But that's the first thing to go for me because I'm always like a doer. And what we were talking about before is like being so sort of solutions based. I think when there's like a problem or something, it's like I go in head first into something, whereas I sort of do first, think later type thing. So
it's very
ask
masculine.
for forgiveness, not for permission.
Yeah. So as soon as something,
I love that saying. I love that.
We've had to lean on that a few times. But it's like that's how I like working. I like getting stuff done. I like just sort of like moving the needle and like going like shifting forward. And I think Ella is good at sort of grounding me and pulling me back a bit.
But I think that's great. I think the great thing about doing in life is that if we put out a goal or we put out a dream, we can't just sit back and go, I'm just going to do nothing and expect that dream to just manifest in my life. It was my one gripe with The Secret where have you ever read The Secret?
I haven't read it, but I've listened
so it's
to
like
them
this
a lot.
the whole thing like, so I got a picture of a bike because I wanted a bike. And I put it up in my bedroom and I looked at the bike. And then on Christmas Day, the bike arrived. And this sort of metaphoric thing that if you just put a picture of something up, it's just going to find its way to you. Like, yes, the universe does operate in a way that the things that you put out come back to you, but it doesn't mean you don't have to fucking work hard towards them. It doesn't mean you got to work towards them. It's not this sort of I get, world. It's an I give world, but it's also work hard for the things that you want to achieve. So if you're a doer, I think there's a moment of leaning into the doing and where that serves you, and also going, okay, well, where am I doing too much? I'm exhausted. And there's a balance.
There's a funny story.
That's what's great about you two, that you guys, as a business,
we're so chalk and cheese.
You are so chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
So the business as an entity between you two or separate to you two becomes this quite balanced thing.
Yeah, no, it does.
Together, we're perfect. Individually, we've got a lot of things going on.
Ali used to, this is so funny because Ali used to have, because I used to not take the piss, but just, because when she used to talk like that universe type stuff.
Are you going to tell the story about TBH?
No. So I was, wait. This is a better one. So like she used to say, the universe has got her back. The universe will help this. And I'm like, I'm all for that, but it's like you've still got to like do the things. But then, so she changed her name or my name in her phone to the universe. So whenever she wanted something, she'd text the universe, and the universe would do it. So I'm like, she's like, the universe will do it for me. So she'd text me what to do, and I'd do it. And it was like, the universe has got me.
And I changed it back because I was on a date with a boy one day, and it came up as the universe. And I was like, I've just got to text Nathan back, and the guy was like, the universe? I was like, no, you don't get it.
He's a representation of it, which he is, because it's quite day to day.
Okay.
We're not just a drop in the ocean; we're the entire ocean.
That's right.
But another thing about the universe having our back, there was a day where we were unpacking something, and I was trying to like push my opinion real hard and like tell him. And anyway, Nathan's angel number, if he had an angel number, is 9. Okay.
What's 9?
It's my favourite number.
It's his favourite number is 9.
Was your number playing footy 9?
It was my favourite. 9, I was 10 at St Kilda, but 9 growing up and still 9. And 9 and 10
because it was the closest thing to 9?
No. Yeah, it was. 9 was already taken by Jack Steele, who was a skipper. So
I just have to tell this story. It's totally off topic. But we're having like a debate about something, and we're in the Gold Coast, and this is just before the Gold Coast opens. So we are having a debate. I don't remember
when you say the Gold Coast happens, you mean your studio in Burleigh Heads?
We were up there doing a pop-up event at the time.
Yeah, we were. We were up there doing a pop-up event, and we were getting the stuff from just like the shopping centre before we were going back to go to this event. And we're having like a heated, because we have very big heated chats.
Yeah,
like there's a lot of debating here. And so we're having this like real big debate, and I'm saying something about having to like trust the universe and like just surrender, whatever. I'm like pushing that. Like we just have to
through the shopping centre car park, just jabbing at each other.
Through, yelling at each other, and a car stops. And this is me like I don't even remember what my point was, but I was trying to have a point of something. A car stops to let us cross. The number plate of the car is TBH 999.
Yeah,
the Breath Haus 999.
To be honest, it's just not 9. It's 9. And also, if you
999.
didn't see it, it's 9. And if you didn't see it for the third time, there's a 9 for it.
But it's TBH 999. The car that stopped is TBH 999, and we had to cross in front of it.
Because we were going to get a number. We were looking at getting a number plate as well, which was like TBH 444 or something. Because we're obsessed with number plates, by the way.
Yeah, we were really obsessed.
Don't know why.
This is a new thing. I'm a number plate in a car girly now.
So there's number plates are collectibles.
So you've entered back into the horizontal world.
So she's gotten a few things. She's gotten a few things from me, and I've got a few things from her.
Yeah.
Like she loves cars. Like I love cars. Like she loves cars.
I love cars now.
So like Lamborghini will go past and she'll be like, oh my God.
It's starting to blend. Hey, back to the breathwork stuff.
Oh yeah, you want to talk about angel numbers?
Oh yeah, well, go on, but I'm here to bring you back. There'll be a lot of people listening to this who've never done any breath work. They've breathed their whole lives, thankfully, but they've never entered into the somatic element of it, which is, controlling your breath or telling your breath what to do. What is the science behind breath work? And I know that there's lots of different types, but maybe go into some of the different sessions that you run and the science behind that. Because I've done, box breathing, we talked about earlier. I've done holotropic stuff that's more Wim Hof style.
The thing that I always want to cue on, like when people are like, oh, I've never done breath work, is people often come to me and they're like, oh no, I tried meditation. It didn't work for me. And I'm like, meditation doesn't work for me either, babe. Sitting with my mind, like I have to sit there and it's a constant battle. But when you do breath work, like it's a little bit different for the people who think that maybe it falls under the same category. Breath work is like active meditation. Breath work is using your body to silence your thoughts. And there's like a bit of a game. There's a doing. There's a doing. There's something to hold on to. There's something to come back to. And like it takes you a few moments. But often if you just keep coming back to that inhale and keep like letting your body soften on the exhale, there's a moment where you're so immersed in it and like it's like your body silencing what your mind needs to be doing. You know what I mean? Like your body shuts off.
Over.
Your body shuts off that like monkey mind.
Yep.
And you go into your limbic and into your like the rest of your brain.
So that's
me.
That's the science behind why
it's different to meditation.
But when we get into some of your sessions, I mean, I've done a few of them, and I've done lots of holotropic breathing stuff, which is that sort of Wim Hof style of breathing, but it's even more extended, more amplified.
Have you done the one with me where you scream? Have you done the breakthrough?
I haven't screamed. I have screamed a lot. Sometimes I just go out to the ocean after my meditation or breathwork session
and scream.
And I just scream. And sometimes there's a bit of vibrato at the end of my scream, which means that I'm too in control.
And people that are walking past the beach like, oh, that's Josh.
No, I really let it rip and I sort of grab my neck afterwards and go, do I have nodules? No, I don't. I'm okay. I just release what was in me. But what I notice about the sessions I do with you guys, if I do Wim Hof stuff before an ice bath, 10 minutes of breath. We're going into 45 to an hour with you guys, and that takes me to a totally another zone, another world. And it is, as you said, we access that subconscious, but it's not comfortable.
No, it's not often comfortable.
It's not comfortable.
Yeah.
And
there's moments of night. There's moments where you're like, oh, this is why I'm here.
There's moments of bliss. There's moments of euphoria. There's moments of discomfort that you've got to heartbreak, that you've got to anguish, that you've got to sort of work through. What is happening in those sessions? What are we doing? Is it just our mind going?
This is a Nathan question because my ADHD will take me on a tangent.
Well, if you go to the Breath Haus, we have obviously two sort of styles that we work with. So there's LSD, which is long, slow, deep, and then there's release style, which is more of a sympathetic, positive stress, really active breath, like a lot of mouth breathing, a lot of that's more your
sympathetic as opposed to parasympathetic, which is your rest and digest.
Yes. Yeah. So LSD, long, slow, deep, that's based highly on touching on your parasympathetic nervous system. So lots of like slow inhale, nose breaths out through the mouth, controlled, a lot more
controlled exhale,
a lot more grounding,
which is what singers do a lot.
Yeah,
we're really controlling the exhale because that's how we hold on to it.
Yeah, so it's putting your body into its rest and digest system.
Yeah,
and that's sort of that's sort of like a meditative style. That's where if you sort of sit in your sympathetic response most of the day, like busy professionals, sports people, those type like office workers, anxious, stress types of people. LSD is great for that because it takes you out of that response, puts your body into a parasympathetic state.
But in saying that, for anyone who tries breathwork, just a side note, sometimes if you are super anxious and you are super up here in your body and there's not much
up
in here.
in your mind.
Yeah, you're not someone who you're very this all the time. It takes you longer than one session. It takes you that first session is just cultivating that safety and stillness. Then the second session, your body starts to let the layers down. It's not just a one time come in and it all of a sudden it's magic. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you lay down and within 20 minutes you're like, oh, this is why I'm here. But often for the people who are so it takes them more than one time of doing it.
And the issue that we have with society is that we're living in an Uber Eats model for everything. If I want this, I can get it now. If I want this, I get it now. I want that new pair of jeans. I want that, bigger lips, this, that, the other. It's immediacy where we operate on immediacy. So when we get met with breath work and I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm in my sympathetic, I want to move to parasympathetic, well, I'll go to Breath Haus and I'll just get it. Then I get it now. You go, no. It doesn't happen like that. When you want to do real work.
Sometimes it does, but just for the people who are so highly strung.
But it might happen to one level.
Yeah.
If you want to keep going and going and going. It took me 3.5 years to actually feel like meditation was actually doing something.
That's right. Regular practice is
practice.
Key.
Practice the practice of practicing.
That's right. That's literally, we've got some people that come once a month and then that's fine for them. We've got some people that come almost every day and just sort of come in, and by now they can self-regulate. They can go into it. They can go into an LSD session and know what levers to pull, how long to control exhales, and they love it. So it's a lot of that, and that's where we want to get people to. It's like, we don't want you to come see us for the next 10 years of your life. It would be great, but it's like if we can sort of cultivate that in yourself, and it's like you are met with these realizations, what makes you tick, you know which levers to pull in your body, you know that if I'm stressed, I can come back to this type of breath and I can bring myself back.
You're empowering people.
So that's overall, that's what we do. Like, we're built on our community, our people. Like, we do everything to give like the best possible experience, and that's purely what we're built on.
And also to show people that it's all in them. Like to show people that once you get, like, we hold the space for you to believe in it. Yep. Like you come to us and you lay down and
we give
you the tools. We show you, we hold you accountable to staying in that space and staying in that, like, you know, not letting your monkey mind be like, oh, you forgot to do this and this is more important right now. Like, you're not going to get up and like go write that note or like do that email that's come to you in the first 5 minutes of the session.
Or get the glad wrap that you forgot to get at the supermarket.
Exactly. Like you stay with yourself. And so we're like that gentle force of staying with yourself until you believe in it.
Yeah,
and then you have it.
And as well as it's almost like the studio concept and the class-based sort of stuff that we do is, I think people, if you try to do it yourself, and I've tried before, like you get an app or you get a YouTube video or something, you do it yourself and you're like, am I doing it right? I don't know what I'm doing. My phone's going off. I'm not right here. It's like you come here. It's like going back. It's like an F45 class. You go in there, you get your practice done. You've got coaches, you've got people. You do it properly. You know what you're doing.
You're supported.
And you've got like-minded people around you. You've got great facilitators. That's where I think, why we've sort of been so popular is it's because, it's somewhere where people go and they know they're getting like looked after. They're doing it properly. They're not thinking about anything else outside of where they are in that studio. And the way that our studios are built, if anyone hasn't been, they're very cocoon-like. You walk in, the outside world doesn't exist. You're there for an hour and, you know, you've got great visuals on the walls. We've got, you know, it's just sort of...
And you're lying down.
The
whole time.
Blanket. You have a very fluffy
yoga
blanket.
Bolster. Yes, it's a very fluffy blanket.
So it's amazing. So that's what we try to envision.
So it feels like coming home.
Yeah.
That cocoon that we all need to do. And we are all always going through the caterpillar to butterfly construct. Every single day, through the week, through the month, through the years, through the decade, and all the way back to just that day or just that moment.
That's right.
We're constantly going in from something out the other side. So to feel like you can go to a safe cocoon and know that on the other side of it, there's a version of yourself that's leaning more towards the version of yourself that you want to be.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. Hey, on the other side of the long, slow, deep LSD is the release.
Yes, release.
And that's the more sympathetic.
Very active breath, very put your body in a sympathetic state. If anyone's ever done Wim Hof, it's very similar. Just a fair bit more guided, more tweaks. It's not just, you know, boom, breathing in and out, breath holds.
Let it go.
Yeah. So it's if you think of the Wim Hof method breathing style, it's similar. It's similar.
But it is a feeling of like...
It's the semi-stress response into the hold.
But like a hyperventilation sort of thing.
We call it superventilation now.
Superventilation, sorry. And then the long breath holds.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's putting your body in like states of positive stress, like a sauna, like an ice bath. You're putting your body into this state where...
Then the breath holds are like alkalining your blood, reducing the inflammation in your body.
Yeah. If anyone's ever done a breath hold, like during release classes, it's like you get smashed with...
Yeah.
You're like your body's tingling. You're...
Like you
my
can
hands
feel
and feet
it.
go.
It's wild. So it's pseudo-holotropic, like what you're saying. It's not quite those big holotropic sessions, but it's like you're touching on that sort of psychedelic state.
Just to talk about how much investment you guys have put into community and how much you value community. The sessions you do or you have done on Elwood Beach.
Oh my gosh, we were doing them for so Elwood. So the council don't love us.
No, they do love us.
They love us, but we are classified as a festival. Every time
You're classified as a festival.
It's like a major event.
It's a major event
Because
now.
how many people do you get down there?
The first weekend that we had in January, we had like 300 people.
No, I think it was 380 or something.
300 or close to 400 people doing breath work, getting in the ocean and doing ice bath
Yeah.
stuff.
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes
just
we do a
having
little
the
run as
best
well.
time. Just having the best time. But then the people around don't like it so much.
Yeah.
And that's the only time you do ice bath stuff, isn't it? Because you've sort of you go, that's not a part of my core business.
Well, actually, funny story. When we first opened Breath Haus Windsor, the two of the rooms that are now the office and the junk room storeroom, depends on how you look at it, but storeroom and office.
It's storing junk and now you're both happy.
Exactly.
Yes.
There we go. It was the ice bath room and the sauna room because we didn't think, well, I didn't believe, and I was like so adamant that breathwork wasn't going to be
enough.
Breathwork wasn't going to be enough. Typical me, the story, not enough. Constantly telling myself that story. Breathwork wasn't enough. So we got a sauna and we got an ice bath and we had a room for both of those. And then we had the sauna for like 6 weeks.
We didn't even use it. We sold it pretty much straight away.
Yeah, we turned it on to take a photo of it, an infrared.
Yeah. We didn't need it. I didn't think we didn't need it.
And the ice bath?
But anyway, we do. The ice bath, we cancelled the order.
We cancelled the order.
Yeah.
How great. And so now you just run them.
Just on the beach, yeah.
Just on the beach.
Yeah, so when we do our community stuff.
Because it's like the same empowerment thing. It's like we're showing you your breath as a tool, but cold is just the same much of a tool.
Yeah,
like the things that happen to you when you sit in an ice bath, it's the same as like that sympathetic into the parasympathetic.
And a lot of people here listening may not have done an ice bath. So a bit of the science around that, what's that going to do?
So ice baths, I don't think they're always amazing for everyone, and I think that there's a lot of people who sit in like a really highly strung state all of the time, and like I know some clients of mine who are like, I did an ice bath, and I'm like, babe, please don't do another ice bath for a while. Like you have crazy endo flare-ups, you have all of these like insane, like really sympathetic things. Your body doesn't need that intense like ice, but for 80% of the population, getting into an ice bath is, again, falling under that same hermetic stress moment where you get in and your body, every part of your body goes, what are you doing? Why are you here? What are you doing in this moment? And you control your breath and you control how your body is handling that stress response and you ground yourself in that moment. And then after like a minute and a half, you come back into your parasympathetic.
Yep.
So it goes
That's
from
the
a
part I
stress.
love.
Yeah. So and you can watch it happening on an Apple Watch.
Really?
Yeah, you can physically in real time watch your body going like that and then going like that. If you put
that
it on
undulation, that is so cool.
If you put it on as a workout and you get into an ice bath and you control your breath and you stay in there for like 3 minutes, you will watch the moment go down.
Really? That's so interesting. I mean, I know that for me when I do it regularly.
You have to be like controlling yourself.
Controlling breathing. So, I know when I do it regularly. And I guess I got to a point, I found it in about 2017, 2018. And it changed my life. And now, all mental for me.
Yeah.
It's a constant reminder because I'll lean closer to Nathan as a human, that the doing was always the driver. And it's probably been the last decade where I've gone a little bit. This is probably why I get along with both of you, because I see myself in both of you, where I've sort of stepped into.
You ground me so much. Like that time I saw you on the street, I was like, oh, I just needed to see you. Anyway, keep going. Sorry. Keep going. Sorry. I'll stop. We'll go back to that.
And so I probably, leaned into more spiritual practice and philosophical practices and things that some people might call woo-woo, like even going to an ice bath. I go, that's mad. But it is my gateway to surrender. It's me going, you don't need to do. You don't need to fight. You don't need to run away. You can just be in you. And yes, it's not comfortable. That first 90 seconds, especially if it's really cold. Yeah. When we get into zeros, ones, twos, and it is freezing, it is not nice.
Yeah.
It's
but
also
life
like that
isn't always
moment.
nice.
That's right.
And you can sit in the not nice.
There's so much.
And this too shall pass.
It's the moment where you're walking up to the ice bath, walking up to the ocean in winter, and you're like, I'm the one who's walking here. Like, no one is forcing me to get in here right now. No one is making me do this. And you're like, okay, fine.
Yeah,
I'm going to do
funny.
it.
There's
I'm
so
going to
much.
get in.
There's so much to it. It's like, there's the physical, the inflammation, the recovery aspects. There's like the mental, where it's like you're in there, you're controlling your mind, you're controlling your breathing, the discipline of going. No one's making me do an ice bath, but I'm going to go do a hard thing because I'm showing myself, and that builds that you can do hard things.
Yeah.
So it's not just about and you get to take a cool picture for Instagram, but it's like it's not just about 1, 2, 3 aspects. Everyone does these things for a different reason.
With all this work that you guys are doing now with the Breath Haus, which now has 3 studios, and I'm sure there'll be more because it's doing so well because people are coming home to themselves when they get there, and everyone is on a mission to get back to themselves in some way, I think. What is the impact that you feel, or the dream that you want to create with this in terms of the impact it can have on community and vast community, the whole country? Like,
I never thought that any of this would be my reality now. And now that I have people sending me these messages every day, having the same experiences that I had, I'm like, that's enough for me. Like, I feel like if I stopped right now, my work could be done. Yeah. But I also feel like it's probably going to get louder. I want people to take their mask off. I want people to feel safe being who they are and actually showing up and feeling empowered and feeling like they're enough and feeling like they can be messy and chaotic and you know what I mean? Like, I want people to feel home in themselves and be their real true self. That's what I want.
Beautiful.
And I want them to realize how powerful they are and that they can be exactly
Limitless.
who they want. Yeah, like they can be whatever they want to be.
Yeah.
And like, had you told me 5 years ago that this is where I would be right now, like telling you my story.
Based on your story, how far you've come and that this seed of breathwork was, built what it's built. It's extraordinary.
I want to show people that like they don't have to be like, yes, there's still moments where I feel very a victim to my mindset and very like Nathan pulls me up on it all the time. He's like, what are you doing there? What are you saying about that? But I want people to understand that they can have the most fucked story, but make it their power and like feel all of the things that they can be whoever they want to be. They can do whatever they want to do. They just have to like be nice and
Beautiful. And Nate?
For me, like meeting Ella, like I knew the first time I went to that breathwork session, I started coming and I was like, there is so much in Ella and our facility, like now, like Jaden, Hannah, like everyone that's been through.
Now.
But I'm purposely not front facing because it's like I just want to keep putting good people, Ella, Jay, like everyone that in our sort of TBH facilitator sort of circle, like people need to learn off Ella and learn off Jaden because it's like Ella has so much like gift and Jaden has such a gift that they just needed somewhere to be like, that's theirs. People come and see out because at the time, a vehicle to share their gift.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was in player management, and I was like, fuck that. I'm gonna like sort of back Ella and back like she just needed someone to put her up here
to believe in you.
Yeah, but she would have been like, and if we'd never met, she would have been so happy just doing her own thing, being a fairy.
This is my favorite thing. I am so happy right now. Like, yes, I have moments of pure overwhelm, but I was so happy when I met Nathan. Like, ever since I found Breathwork, I have been so content with exactly where I am. And like, the wildest part is like when I met Nathan, I would have been so happy. I would have been so content with one studio. That was my dream. Full stop. That was my dream.
Just doing
what I was doing was enough for me. Yeah. Like that was enough. And then it's like I just kept having this like high feeling all the time about everything that was happening in my life. And now I'm like, this isn't even my final form. I don't know how much better it can get.
Yeah.
But it's also the power of breathwork, obviously, but the power of someone really believing in you.
Yeah.
And how many times, are there people in your life who you believe in, you fully believe, and you don't say that. You don't say those words to them. I believe in you. And that might be the only thing that they need to hear that can change their whole day, once again, the whole week, the whole month, year, lifetime. And we can give so much to other people. I talk a lot about service and sharing on this podcast. What you guys are doing, you're in a service industry, but you're actually really sharing and you're really serving the community in the world, but you're also serving each other.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. And I reckon I saw that, like meeting Ella, I was like, she's so happy in herself and happy, and she's worked through her shit. Still, like you're never a final form, you're never perfect. No, but I'm like, people that I know and people like people need to know who she is and know that there's this way and there's this girl that's doing this thing that is helping so many people. But she probably like by her own admission just lacked like that sort of big picture. Like I'm like, she needs, like more people need to know about her. Like, let's go, let's do some like big stuff.
And you might be able to like handle the creativity side of it and the content side of it, but you needed someone to handle the business side of it, what it looks like in 3 years' time, how to bring that into reality.
Yeah.
And so
we have like meetings with our mentors now, and I sit there and I'm like, are we talking about my business? Like I sit there being like, are you guys, I have to go to the bathroom and like take actual deep breaths because I'm so overwhelmed that this is like my business that we're talking about. And like, this is what we're talking, like this is me that we're speaking of, and I just can't, and this is all Nathan.
I think above all else, like we still don't view it as like a business. No. I think it's just like the amount of time and funds and all that. Like we pretty much put everything straight back into like our community, our business. Like when we run beach sessions with the ice bars and stuff, it probably costs us like a couple grand a pop.
Really?
Yeah, but we just do these things. We're
But you change 400 people's life.
And
400 people go and have the best Saturday that they've ever had because we went and put our time and effort into the morning.
So that's the thing. We almost sit here and we just flick ideas and we're like, this would be sick if we could do this and for our people. And we're like, let's do it. And so I think that's probably why we've done what we've done is because, and I was having this conversation, I can't remember who it was, but they were saying if you two were sort of looking at it through like a business lens or you had like experience in sort of like this type of business, you would have just gone down the path of like your profit and loss statement and like this is how the studios are built and here's your numbers and sort of that sort of stuff. Whereas me and Ella just basically just run off like what would be the coolest shit we can do with our community. Like let's just keep going. Let's do a studio in Burleigh because I reckon then like so many people will love it. Like let's do it. Let's do a studio in Richmond because a lot of our people are from Richmond and let's give them something cool. So I think we've just done it in such an orthodox way, like a lot of trial and error. Like we've burnt a lot of money on just like stupid shit.
We are building the plane as we are flying it.
Yeah, literally. Literally.
That is the biggest thing
but
for
I think
us.
that's why we work so well because I don't think anyone is
But you're not afraid to make mistakes.
No one can, if we just do what we do and be authentic and like have our original ideas and keep bouncing off each other, like you can't replicate it because
I think
we're not following a blueprint.
And I think that there's a lot of people in this field who are maybe getting a little bit like their feathers ruffled because we're just doing it our way, not like a way that anyone else is doing it. Yeah, we're not doing the whole like it has to be this super external, vulnerable thing every time for everyone. It's like, no, you can come and take as much as you need from it. You can come and have that little moment where you just feel the tiny bits of tingles and then next time you go deeper. It doesn't have to be this full like primal scream, eye gazing, like super like wind chimes and like all of that kind of stuff.
It doesn't have to be therapy.
Yeah,
every single
it can
time.
be
It's
fun.
just a practice.
It can be fun, and it can be like, and it can be whatever you want it to be. And like this is like the biggest thing for us is like when you come to the Breath Haus, we're probably not going to validate the story of what you think Breathwork is going to be when you come in because you're going to lay down and all of a sudden ASAP's going to play or Fred Again's going to play or like it's not going to be just like the whole, there's a time and a place for the super spiritual magic side of it, but then also you can just be like normal and relatable
practical
and
side of it.
Practical, exactly.
Yeah.
Everything is the way it is until someone changes the game or changes the way it was. And we just looked at it in a different way. Like I looked at it in a different way. Ella was already sort of like, playing the ASAP Rockies and the Fred Agains and stuff. And then I come in and I'm like, this is like so cool. Let's take bits of that because if this relates to me, and like you said, like I started bringing in my footy mates and stuff and they're like, what the hell is this? This is so cool. And then just got bigger and bigger. And I'm like, like this is the way to get the people that have never heard of Breathwork, would never have tried it. It's like you come in and they walk out and they're happy to post a photo like Breath Haus, Instagram, because people like to be associated with like there's cool things, but it's like we're above all else we're getting them to do breathwork in a healthy practice and changing
but making it relatable
and making it
Instagrammable.
Yeah. But it's like, take away that, it's like, we got you into doing it. You know what I mean? Got you into doing breathwork. You just sort of had to, you got to lure them in a little bit. You know what I mean? And then until you do it once, you get it. And then they're like, I fucking love this.
Yeah. And there's no, I think, better business tool than word of mouth.
Yeah. We don't do any paid advertising. We've done none.
We've done like 6 months of email marketing, but other than that, nothing.
Yeah, word of mouth and
when people have a really positive experience where they were deeply affected in some way, it didn't have to be a deep session, but they were really deeply affected and they value it, they're going to share that experience with other people, whether it's met with sincere inquiry or it's more your sort of, vegan CrossFitter breath person who just wants to tell everyone what they're doing. Either way, they're gonna share it.
Yeah,
and I think it's amazing that you've created something that is so stooped in clearly what you guys value. It's stooped in purpose. It's stooped in as much as you, how did you describe yourself as? A chaotic fairy.
Yeah, a chaotic fairy.
It's still stooped in something that is really grounded in science. It's practical. And I just think what you're giving Melbourne, Burleigh and I can see it going to lots of other places. Giving community is so special. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate it. You guys you're extraordinary humans, and your journeys to get to where you are, as I said at the start, are so interesting and so unique. And I just can't wait to see what's next for you as the Breath Haus, but as Nathan Freeman and as Ella Pike.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having us.
I'm also excited to see where Behind the Mask goes. Excuse me?
We shall see.
Very excited about this.